Good day everyone and welcome to our course for this semester, Computer Architecture and Data Communication. So in this course, we will be talking about the hardware components, the different hardware components that make up our computer, as well as the software components. We will be talking about the data processing that is happening inside our computer, how data is relayed from one place to another inside our computer. Also, we will be talking about the internet and the components of the network. We will be talking about IPv4 address and how we can convert an IPv4 address into a 32-bit address. Also, we will create a simple simulation of a computer network within this course. Without further ado, let us start with our first lesson for this course. So this is a familiar picture. I know that you have seen this before and have made assembly and disassembly of a system unit. So this is a system unit with its different components seen. So on your computer troubleshooting subject on your first year or second year, you were asked to study the system unit as well as reformat or format an entire operating system into a system unit. So the system unit has several components needed in order for it to work or to turn on and to be enjoyed or to be used by users like you and me. So first we will be talking about hardware. So hardware are physical parts of the computer, and it is directed by software to execute command or instruction. So hardware will not work unless it is instructed using a software. So, hardware are also classified into four categories: input, output, processing, and storage or memory. So input devices are physical piece of hardware that connects to a primary device such as a computer in order to provide user input. So input devices are generally a class of peripheral devices that connect to the primary device. So we have examples of input devices here. We have the keyboard, the mouse, the webcam, the microphone, and the scanner. So there are a lot of input devices out there that we can use to our computer. So a touchscreen device is also an example of an input device. So what input devices do is that it transforms human readable form into a computer readable form. So now we'll talk about output devices. So output devices is any hardware device used to send data from a computer to another device or user. Usually, most output peripherals are meant for human use. So they receive the processed data from the computer and transform it in the form of audio, video, or physical reproduction. So here are examples of output devices. We have the printer, the headphone, the printer, the monitor, and the speaker. So as what I have said earlier, input devices transforms human readable form into a machine or computer readable form. What output devices do is that it makes computer readable form into human readable form in the form of audio, video, or physical reproduction, such as this printer. So those are output and input devices. These are vital or important components of a system. So next is processing devices. So these components are responsible for the processing of information within the computer system. It is the stage where raw data is transformed into information. Once data has been processed, it can be used for useful processes. So we have the CPU, the memory, and the motherboard. First, we will talk about the motherboard. So here is a picture of the motherboard with its different components labeled. So first, we have the CMOS BACkup battery. So what this does is it keeps your system's date and time up to date. So even if you turn off your computer, your time and date will still be updated or will still be running because of this CMOS backup battery. So if this battery runs out, or if you take this one out, the computer will not be updated if you turn off your computer. So here also we have our PCI slot where we can um, place different hardware as well. So if you have your internet card or a graphics card, you can place it here or in this dedicated AGP slot. Here we have our IDE connector. So this is where we connect our cables from our hard drives. And then we have our power connector for connection to our power supply, and two memory slot for our memory or the RAM. Here also we have the CPU socket wherein we put our CPU. So this is an example of what the CPU looks like. So the CPU is the brain of our computer, and at the back of it has several connectors that will be aligned to the pins that are found or that are present into our CPU socket. And beside it is um, a connector for our heatsink as well as the fan. So generally we put a thermal paste on the front of our CPU to avoid overheating, because overheating the CPU will cause into a random shutdown and will not save any of your work if your system will automatically shut down. So here at the back of our motherboard, we have several connectors and integrated peripherals. So we have our mouse port, the keyboard. We have the serial port. This purple one is for our printer, and this one is for our monitor. Also, we have 6 USB ports and an Ethernet port, as well as an audio port at the back. So we have for the microphone, the audio, and for the input audio input connector. So this is our motherboard with its components labeled. So every motherboard has a BIOS, so short for basic input output system. The BIOS is a ROM chip found on motherboards that allows you to access and set up your computer system at the most basic level. So if you notice on old computers or even newer computers as well, so when you turn a computer, you will be greeted up by the BIOS screen, so wherein you can press a dedicated function key in order to access the BIOS. So in the BIOS, you can change the date and time. You can change the boot device order, as well as set up a password, administrator password in your BIOS. So the BIOS includes instructions on how to load basic computer hardware. It also includes a test referred to as a POST, or the power on self-test, that helps verify the computer if it meets the requirements to boot up properly. If the computer does not meet the requirements during post, a combination of beeps may be heard indicating that something is wrong with the computer hardware connected into our motherboard. It could be a um, due to a misplaced RAM. The RAM may not be secured in properly, and other um, malfunctions within our motherboard. Also, the BIOS can be updated using specially designed software. So, um, if a BIOS manufacturer will give a software update for its BIOS, this will help fix problems or add features for our motherboard. Next is storage devices, or the memory or storage devices. These components retain or store data and is subdivided under primary and secondary, and is either volatile or non-volatile. So primary memory usually refers to random access memory, or the RAM. So this is an example of a RAM. So this is a RAM of a laptop. Desktop computers usually have taller RAM. However, this is a 4 gigabyte type of RAM, and is used for commonly a laptop. A RAM can be of several types. It could be a DDR3 or a DDR4, which is commonly used um, in most motherboards right now. So, but can also refer to all memory that works in tandem with the processor. So, RAM is volatile, meaning that it retains data only when the computer is powered up. So, if the computer is powered up, this memory can store data. However, if you turn off your computer, all data in your RAM is wiped out upon the next um, you turn on your computer. So next is secondary memory. They is labeled as such because data stored within secondary storage media, usually disk drives such as this one. So this is a hard drive of a laptop as well. So computer or desktop computers have usually larger hard drives than this. These secondary storage medias do not communicate directly with our microprocessor or our CPU. Any data stored in such media is first transferred to a RAM. So the RAM is the temporary storage for our data, um, and then is transferred to our secondary memory, such as hard drive, for safekeeping. So secondary memory are non-volatile devices, which means it retains data regardless if the computer has power or not. No? So this hard drive can store data even if the computer is turned off or turned on. No? So this way we can um, store our files, our pictures, and everything that we want to store into our hard drive. Secondary memory and is subdivided into two categories: internal and external devices. So here we have examples of the primary storage devices and the secondary storage devices. So our primary devices, as what I have said earlier, we have the RAM, or the random access memory, and the ROM, or the read-only memory. So most BIOS are stored in the read-only memory. That is why specially designed software can only be used to update our BIOS, which are stored in our read-only memories. And then we have our secondary storage medias. No? So it is divided into internal storage devices, which is here the hard drive and the solid state drive. So what the solid state drive does is that it gives more write and read speed than a traditional hard drive. So solid state drive uses flash drives, flash capabilities instead of the traditional hard drive. And then we have our external storage devices, which you are all familiar with. We have flash drive and the optical drive. So next we will now we are finished with the hardware side. So now we will be talking about the software. So software carries out middleman tasks to ensure communication between other software and hardware to allow harmonious coexistence with the user. So the software is divided into two types, system software and the application software. So first, we will talk about the system software. So system software are a set of programs that control and manage the operation of computer hardware. It also helps application programs to execute correctly. The primary piece of system software is the operating system such as Windows, iOS, Android, Mac OS X, Linux, and others are the types of operating system. So an operating system, in its most general sense, is software that allows a user to run other applications in a computing device. So computer operating systems perform basic tasks such as recognizing input from the keyboard from our input device, sending output to the display screen such as our monitor, keeping track of files and directories on the storage devices such as our hard drive, and controlling peripheral devices such as printers. So this is what the operating system does. So it serves as the middleman of our input and output devices. So operating systems provide a software platform on top of which other programs called application programs can run. The operating system consists of many components and features, which features are defined as part of the operating system vary with each operating system. However, the three most easily defined components are: first is the kernel. So a program that constitutes the central core of a computer operating system. It is a bridge between applications and the actual data processing done at the level hardware. Also, the kernel is the heart of the operating system. So if the CPU is the brain of of the system unit, the kernel is the heart of the operating system. So it provides basic level control over all of the computer hardware devices. So main role includes reading data from memory and writing data to memory, processing execution orders, determining how data is received and sent by devices. So the kernel acts as the well next is the user interface. So users may interact with the operating system and the applications installed using the user interface either by command line interface or the graphical user interface. So we are all familiar with what graphical user interface is. So it is what we can see on our screen right now, while command line interface looks like a command prompt only, wherein you can type commands. You can only type commands in order for a computer to operate. So command line interface is user friendly, unlike the graphical user interface. And lastly, application programming interface. API is the acronym for Application Programming Interface, which is a software intermediary that allows two applications to talk to each other. Each time you use an application like Facebook, send an instant message, or check the weather on your phone, you are using an API. And lastly is the application software. So it is a program that does the work for the user. It is mostly created to perform a specific task for a user. It includes browsers, office applications, and etc. So these are often called productivity programs or end user programs because they enable users to complete tasks. For example, for an application software is the Microsoft where you can create documents, or um, the Microsoft Publisher where you can create business cards and brochures. The PowerPoint wherein you can make PowerPoint presentation just like what I am using right now, and you can manipulate data using the Microsoft Excel. You can um, edit photos on Adobe Photoshop. You can listen or watch videos on media applications. So that is application software. So they perform specific tasks for a user. An example also is an antivirus device, or antivirus software, I mean, or a firewall software which prevents malicious attacks from other computers. So it helps. Its primary task is to prevent malicious attacks, and even as simple as a calculator. So those application software has specific tasks for a user. So that is application software, and that's basically it for this lesson. I will be posting an assignment regarding um, this lesson, as well as a short quiz that will be submitted on Friday. And if you have any questions, you can just comment on the comment box below, or in the comment box in the um, learning material posting in this lesson. So that's it, and see you on our next lesson.